everyone. I'm Andrew Miller. I'm the board chair of the ZCash Foundation. On behalf of everyone at the ZCash Foundation, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you all to Zcon1, the second annual conference for ZCash. Yeah, let's do that. If you've had any look at our program, you know that there's going to be a tremendous amount of really high-tech discussion, a lot of opportunities to learn from each other, to build our community, form familiarity, build trust among ourselves. This is going to be a really important and excellent event, may even trump the excellent event that we had last year. So really happy to continue in this tradition. Sorry to everyone who came here really early because it says that I'm giving a keynote talk. I'm only aiming for opening remarks and that sort of thing, so calibrate your expectations accordingly. I want to start just by saying, what is Zcash? I'm assuming that if you all managed to make it here, you already have heard an answer to this, but I'm going to try to do something different and you'll see. All right, so we're all here because Zcash is an extremely important project. Privacy is a fundamental human right. That's actually surprisingly well agreed upon in lots of jurisdictions and cultures, all right? And we have increasingly more reason to believe that this isn't something to take for granted. Privacy is under constantly increasing threats due to more and more effective and widespread mass surveillance. And so it's extremely important that we develop open and inclusive privacy-enhancing technologies. This is true for communications and for free speech. It's also true for financial transactions, and so that's why Zcash is such an important project. It's an open network that can be used by anyone who's able to get access to the internet in order to carry out financial transactions with the highest degree of privacy that state-of-the-art technology has available. You just need a catch line. I think HTTPS for cryptocurrency is the best thing to remember because it's like privacy, whereas as Ian would put it, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that don't have privacy are like Twitter for your bank accounts. Okay, so I think you've all heard something like that or have some conceptualization of it. I spend a lot of my time trying to teach technology and cryptography, consensus protocols, the underlying technology, underlying cryptocurrencies. That can get really technical. This is a good place for that. There's a lot of opportunities here to learn the inner workings of how snarks and other forms of zero-knowledge proof works. That's great. But one of the things I like to try to do is to keep it at a more concrete level. So the nice opportunity of cryptocurrencies is that they make what were once really complicated topics, like in cryptography, a whole lot more palpable, visceral, able to interact with. So what I'm going to do by way of basically an opening ceremony for this conference is I'm going to give you a live demonstration of making a shielded to shielded sapling transaction, like the highest, most privacy-preserving action you can carry out on any kind of cryptocurrency. Before I get into this, can I have a quick show of hands? How many of you have made a shielded to shielded transaction yourself? Wow, that is excellent. Yeah, let's have a short round of applause for that. That is outstanding and a lot more than I think. Still, I think that was about only 50%. And so I hope that all of you who didn't raise your hand have the opportunity to make a shielded to shielded transaction so you know what you're missing or have been missing until now. But at the very least, you won't leave this room with being able to say that you haven't seen in person in the same room in front of you a shielded to shielded transaction occur. So I'm going to open up my Zepio wallet, or Zepio. It hadn't occurred to me until just now that I'd ever have to pronounce this out loud. This is one of 2 wallets and 3 kind of total software packages that the ZCash Foundation has sponsored or contracted in some way to bring about that are new this year that I wouldn't have been able to show you last year because they didn't exist. This is going to be a really, simplistic, and I'm actually glad to see that so many of you have already done something like this. But not much to see that's different than what you would see in an ordinary Bitcoin wallet. I'm going to pick one of my sapling shielded addresses that starts with ZS. All right, I have about 7 ZEC. That's like under $1,000 on it so far. And for this demonstration, I'm going to go make a cryptocurrency donation to Tor, to the Tor project. Yay. They've got a donate cryptocurrency button. Hell yeah, I want to donate cryptocurrency. They take a lot of different cryptocurrencies, including Zcash, and they even have a sapling shielded address. So they are up to date on their donation receiving practices. It's fantastic. I'm not going to do this to save time. I may already be running kind of slow, but making donations to a nonprofit with cryptocurrency is compatible with all of the ordinary things like getting an acknowledgement from them that you could use to report that donation. I'm going to skip all of that and just go straight to copying and pasting that address. All right, I'm going to donate the maximum amount that I have on this wallet for now. That's valid. There we go. Send. All right. Now we wait for like 2.5 minutes for this to get included in a block. So I've got success. Let me load up this current one here. Okay, so this will be here. I'm going to have to click that link. I'll come back to this in a moment. You know how blockchains work. It'll take a couple of minutes. So that was it. You've seen a shielded transaction now. Now, I want to, it's fantastic. I want to get in this cadence of like loud applause after every single slide I go through. So what just happened? I don't want to go into too much detail of this, but the value of going through even a live demo like that is you can kind of put yourself into the shoes of what it would be like if you were actually doing this. This is really important because the kind of guarantees that you get from privacy, the distinction of the kind of privacy that Deshielded transactions give you versus other kinds of cryptocurrency transactions can be a little bit subtle. And so I'm not certainly in this talk going to try to convey to you the perfect way to conceptualize privacy and think about it, but I want to get you in the sort of mindset of trying to form a mental model of like what kind of information is transmitted in what different ways when you interact with a cryptocurrency platform like this. So the shielded to shielded transactions, what take place involving the shielded pool, there's T addresses and shielded addresses. All right, and I sent from my shielded address in a wallet to a shielded address that the Tor project had. And the simplest way that is a little bit imperfect and a little bit imprecise, but it'll do for now, is that every transaction from the shielded pool to the shielded pool all kind of look the same. You don't get any information leaked on the blockchain about what was the transaction that initially gave me those coins, or what's the address that they're going to, or what the value of that transaction was. Now the truth is, it's actually a whole lot more complicated than that. You should really, at a conference like this, start trying to, develop like the security mindset and thinking about, what other things are going on like there. Like, I'm not trying to hide my IP address when I go to the Tor project webpage. So they've got IP logs of which IP address I came from, city that I came from that correspond, to the second with the timing of that shielded transaction. So they know where I am even though I clicked that I was anonymous. And it was actually surprisingly difficult to prepare for this demo. The reason being that not only do most nonprofits that accept cryptocurrency or even Zcash, not only do most of them not use shielded addresses right now, even among the ones that do, most of them don't use the current format of sapling addresses. And if I wanted to give you a demo of using sapling to a legacy address, I would have to go through 2 steps, and that would be impossible to try to do in a demo with a single transaction. All right, and even the story among just shielded to shielded transactions, there are some caveats. And I don't want to go into this now. I just want, I would hope that one of the outcomes of, things you try to learn from this conference is to always be increasing your understanding and refining your mental model of what privacy in a cryptocurrency means. So I'm going to highlight some talks that I'm extremely looking forward to, and in the vein of what I've just rambled about for a bit, want to highlight for you as well: The State of Privacy in Cryptocurrencies by Ian, and Transaction Linkability in Zcash by the CryptoLux team. Okay, so let me pause now. I'm going to talk about one more topic at the end, but let me do a little bit of opening logistic kind of important opening announcement messages for you. You've got all of these lovely badges. Yep, so be sure to wear all of these. For one reason, it lets the photographers know that you're okay to take a picture of, or if you opted out of photography, because we love privacy and it's a cool thing to do, I guess, right? Your badge lets you know that. All right, the goal of this conference is for us all to, like I said, build trust, learn to work together as a community, learn from others, learn from people outside of our community as well. So we take seriously our values and code of conduct. No bad behavior, be extremely civil to people. If you feel like unsafe or being harassed in some way or want to contact someone to raise a complaint, you need to know how to find the staff members. They're all wearing green lanyards. Call the people who are staff and want to be known that people can go find them to talk to for help throughout. Say what? And at registration. All right, so you have some idea and look for the green lanyards. So be very nice to each other. One of the nice things about the Zcash community is that it's very open and takes seriously learning from other cryptocurrency projects. We have in our technical program, for example, a lot of speakers who come from primarily other cryptocurrency communities, and so it's nice that they're welcome to come here and talk with us If you want to be mean to people, go take it to like an anonymous place on the internet. You can find enough of those, so you should consider this place like an extension of the ZCash Foundation moderated forums, for example. When we do the workshops, those are not being live streamed the way that all of talks are being live streamed. We ask you to follow the Chatham House rule, so that means you can live tweet like content of the workshops, but don't ascribe the person who said something to it. So you can retweet, statements that were made as anonymous quotes. That's what Chatham House rules mean, okay? On the last day, we're going to have free-form workshops. So you need to know to find the easel. It's like right outside these doors. It's kind of hard to miss. It's right by the registration desk right outside there. So anytime during the week, you can go sort of post your idea for a free-form workshop and indicate your interest by signing up there. Very important is that our schedule is totally jam-packed. That's important because we've only got 3 days, and yet we have a ton of really good talks and high-quality technical content that we're having here. We're talking like 1 megabyte crammed blocks full. So do not go over time. We're going to have like a whole music playing you off schedule to ensure of that, but be warned that we have to stick to a really tight schedule. Unlike last year, where if you remember, we had a really interesting, for conference standards, kind of pace. There was no Q&A whatsoever, and like the presenters had to like trip over each other on the way out. We are going to be doing Q&A after presentations, time permitting in your assigned time slot. Again, don't go over time. So there's an aisle with a microphone. This isn't a huge room, you can see it, it's right there. So form an orderly queue at the mic, right, to ask questions during the talks. One of the cool things that's going on in one of the workshop kind of sessions today is using the Android reference wallet from Electric Coin Company. And as part of that, if you get the Android test app, all right, one of the things you can get is some swag by tweeting your shielded address. You can recreate all of the excitement you just had in the demo that I showed you using the Android app, all right? And if you use the Zcon1 hashtag, right, that's how they'll be able to sweep up your shielded addresses so that you get to participate in that. Okay. So, all right, with the balance of my time, I'm going to try to talk about a topic that is really a half-baked and sort of just brainstorm idea, but I wanted to get things started by, well, I just wanted to talk about this topic because it's been on my mind recently. It's an idea of a coinholder petition. This will make more sense as I go through it. So by way of some context, let me first say a little bit about the ZCash Foundation. So the ZCash Foundation expresses its mission statement according to these 3 pillars of activities that we carry out. All right, some of them are based on the idea of building and strengthening the Zcash community, clearly hosting the Zcash conference. Zcon1 is a large part of that, and including building a community that has a high degree of diversity, inclusivity, in a sense of being able to express voice within this. All right, the other activities that we carry out are related to continuous development on things like the cool new wallets like you got to see, all right, maintenance of the protocol, as well as science and research and education related to the high technology of cryptography and consensus protocols underlying these. Now, a lot of the activities that we do in terms of bolstering the community are, I don't want to say obvious, but maybe are what you would think of, like grants. We've actually, one of the main activities we've done in the last year is set up a new hybrid foundation grants and crowdfunding system through the ZCash Foundation grant system. All right, so supporting crowdfunding and grants from the foundation to community building activities. We host and sponsor and do moderation on the forum, participate in the ZIPS process, things like that. One of the things that's been on my mind recently is the idea of how the cryptocurrency communities in general are able to make difficult decisions. And so one of the interesting threads that I've been following really closely is this question about, okay, what's going to happen after the halvening and what's currently used as funding to the Electric Coin Company and then to the foundation as well through pledge donations that essentially go towards development of the cryptocurrency as well. What's going to happen after those? And so this thread is filled with interesting proposals about what to do along the lines of, like, should we add additional dev fund-like mechanisms or not? And the question is, how does a decentralized cryptocurrency community make difficult decisions? Cryptocurrencies are an experiment in decentralization, so this is very much a tricky thing for which there's no current answer, and one of the main experiments in cryptocurrencies is trying to come up with an answer to how this should work. So one of the ways that I view what goes on in the Zcash world is that clearly I'm part of the ZCash Foundation, and the ZCash Foundation and Electric Coin Company are very much traditional organizations. Like, so the way that we form decisions and express them is pretty clear. Like, we have a 5-person board. I think 4 out of the 5 board people are here, right? We can form a majority vote. That's how the organization, can make and express its decisions. Similar kinds of things with the electric coin company. And while these two organizations are important entities in the Zcash ecosystem, they are not the Zcash ecosystem itself. There's a whole other somewhat amorphous and hard to define around the edges, set of contributors in the community that include everyone who runs full nodes, everyone who provides financial services on the periphery of Zcash, exchanges, custodians, other services like that, all of the other developers who aren't employees of one of the two aforementioned organizations, miners, volunteers in all sorts of other ways. And so while it's very easy to see how these two organizations are able to make decisions on their own, it's a little less clear what it means for this large cloud of Zcash community to even make a decision. And the main thing that's on my mind is that the greater degree to which this has no definition and isn't able to express itself, the less plausibly decentralized this is, and then the two kind of organized organizations are the only things that are so clear to see. So a lot of the activities that we do are related to not just strengthening and promoting the Zcash community, but really trying to give the Zcash community a coherency and a voice and an ability to express its decisions. So one of the ways that we did that was last year through the community governance panel, right? So we basically had a much larger number of people that are on the board of the foundation, but selected based on their existence of a public contribution of some way, like contributors to the code base, or operators of some service, and carry out an online Helios vote. Right? And we made this voice a sort of real voice of the community by recognizing it. Like, we actually use the input from this mechanism for the board election of the ZCash Foundation itself. We know of a bunch of other kind of examples that have been carried out in cryptocurrencies to make difficult decisions, like miners voting. So it's a pretty established thing in Bitcoin anyway, that one way you can get input is by having miners add sort of juicy extra information in the Coinbase metadata of their blocks. That's one way that they can signal their support for, like, yes, I'll continue to mine on this version of a chain or not. We've now seen a bunch of other examples also of Coinholder vote, so essentially voting in proportion to the amount of coins that you have. And what's different about all these is that they all represent different sort of portions of the community. They're not all just like different views of the same people. They can actually be different people. They represent, you can think of like different facets of the community. And so I don't think that there's one correct choice among all of these. Perhaps some blend of these is the right way to collect input from the community. I want to hurry it along so I don't run out of time. Some of the proposals that we've seen, especially very recently, we've seen a very interesting on-chain governance carry out. So this is a formal implemented in code. You should think of this as like fairly formally defined and lots of moving parts and fairly complicated, but it went really successfully. So this was Tezos using an on-chain coin holders vote to adopt this Athens set of technology upgrades that were sort of automatically adopted and voted on and then implemented based on Coinholder vote. We have an issue on how we could implement staked polling, so another form of Coinholder vote, directly from the sapling pool. All right, and so I think that this is a really interesting approach, although this is a really complicated thing as well. The issue then of privacy interacting with the polling mechanism itself is quite complicated and still to work out. So I'm very excited about this kind of proposal, but this is something that's going to take, quite a bit more thought and research to make work, even if we do eventually want to incorporate things like this for Zcash in the future. Now, there's a kind of participation that I've really enjoyed. I kind of like these ones the most. I'm not going to go into so much detail about this, but one of the things that I'm most proud of is how we try to get people to participate in the Powers of Tau ceremony. This was when we got like hundreds of people to participate by reshuffling these random parameters that are used in the sapling upgrade. And what was nice about this is it resembled a sort of emergent order in the sense that the exact role of like which people are going to participate and in what order wasn't determined at all in advance. We basically just made a first post with, by example, what it looks like to say how you ran your code and then provide the output, and essentially just formed like a pile-on. Like people would just show up and post on the mailing list indicating that they wanted to go next. And a lot of the cool things that came out of it, like the structure of how you take a photo of your improvised Faraday cage, and how you use like a burner to melt your toxic waste, all of those just sort of evolved sort of like meme-like over time without having to be very strict, like this is how the foundation approves of participating in this. I think that some of the people used alternate code that wasn't written until after we were already like 20 people in, and then someone made a different re-implementation of the code that people used for that. So what I've been thinking about is like, how can we make these difficult decisions or provide community input in ways that resemble the cool aspects of this kind of emergent order? And so I think I can do this in the 30 seconds that I have, so I won't even go on time because it's a really simple idea. And while waiting for a more complicated mechanism like coin stake voting from the shielded pool, one thing we could do now is form Coinholder Petitions. This is kind of the lo-fi way you could do with the existing Zcash code. So I still have in my wallet now 1 Zec in a transparent address. So in general, we would rather have people use the shielded addresses, but if you have coins in the transparent address, one of the things you can do with the existing Zcash CLI software is sign a message using that key. And if someone goes and clicks on your address and sees that there is still a balance there, and they see that you've signed a message that indicates you're voting for some idea, right? They would be able to see that and verify that like it hasn't been double spent, only the total amount of coin stake and vote at that time. So I'm going to leave it here because I don't want to go off time. I don't really have there's a lot of like caveats of this, and so it's not a complete proposal. But I want to give it as an example of something that someone could start now. So I don't have to give you the entire idea of this. You could start forming messages like, yes, I have 10 Zec and I'm interested in supporting this particular Zcash improvement proposal. And you could post this on the forum now and we could begin including it even without having to wait for permission or for a particular structure to be suggested. So for the sake of keeping on time, I'm going to stop now. Yeah, ideally this would be built into something. Thank you. And I don't know if I even have time for, go ahead, thank you.